Well, we're in October now. I can't believe it. September, it went by extremely fast, and I just can't believe it. We're in September now. But I guess we should get into it before too long, before I start rambling. Hello everyone, Britton here, also known as Samoki Dude, and I am back with another video of what I read during the month of September. I actually had a pretty productive month, even though the month went by pretty quickly, and I didn't really have a lot of issues. And I had a lot of hurdles coming my way, actually, just in terms of my time being sucked up by college and just regular old life stuff and the like. September was actually a pretty good month for me. I saw a lot of, I read a lot of, I completed a lot of books, I watched a couple of movies, and I even reread a book, but we'll get to that, and I even watched a show. So yeah, I've been quite busy this last month. So I guess I should get into it before too long. The first book that I completed is actually one I started in August and I completed in September, and that is Hyperion by Dan Simmons. This is another one of those books, kind of like Lonesome Dove, where a lot of people were telling me to go read it, and a lot of people were recommending it to me. And I finally read it, and I thought it was pretty good. I don't know if I love it as much as people like my friends John does, or my friend Matt really loves it, my friend Jason really loves it, and before anyone says it, I know this is the first part of a story, and I didn't really have an issue with the ending per se. It wasn't really that I thought the book was bad or anything. I think this is a very well written and well conceived book, and there was a lot of really interesting stuff in there, but as is the case with a lot of books that are told in this kind of short story-esque format, there were some stories that were really damn good, and then there were some stories that didn't really affect me as much. I thought that the Scholar's Tale and the Priest's Tale particularly were phenomenal, really great pieces of science fiction literature. And the rest of them were solid. I didn't hate any of the stories, but there were a couple of them that really bugged me more often than not, particularly the noir one I thought was a bit bothersome, in my opinion anyway. But this was a solid book, though. I really like the world building and atmosphere that Dan Simmons has. Dude can write very well, I mean, in terms of prose styling. And I really am intrigued by his vision of the future. So you may see a review of this book in the near future. Maybe not now, because again, we're in October. We're far into spoopy season already, so we're probably not going to see it until the end of the year, or maybe next year. We'll see. But Hyperion is a pretty solid book. It didn't blow me away as I had hoped. It's been kind of the case with a lot of books this year, unfortunately. I thought they were going to be great, and they just turned out to be pretty good. Again, I understand that this is merely the first part of a series, so Jason, anybody else, please, you don't have to comment that, because I know I've already been told this. But, solid book overall. I didn't really have a lot of problems with it. Well, okay, I did have some problems with it, but overall, I generally liked it more often than I did not like it. And I do recommend it. I do think people should read Hyperion. I don't really see anything in this book that the Martian Chronicles doesn't do better, but this is a solid book nonetheless, and I think Dan Simmons is a pretty good writer, so from what I've read, this is my first book from him. I haven't read any of his stuff like The Terror, or the rest of the Hyperion books, or any of his other books, like Summer of Night. I think that's kind of his version of it. But, I haven't read any of his other books. This is my first Dan Simmons. So, I liked it. I thought it was pretty good. So, yeah, check out Hyperion. I'm going to put that down now. Second book I have here is actually a rare reread from Casa Britain, and that is The City in the City by China Miéville, which is kind of his bizarro take on the noir genre. I haven't read this since 2019, and I remember liking it when I read it for the first time, but it was one of those books that I forgot about, and I really wanted to see if I had missed anything, and I really liked this book. It's really good. It was really nice to read a good China Miéville novel again, because the last two I read were duds. I wasn't really a big fan of Iron Council, and I wasn't really a big fan of Embassy Town as well. Excuse me. But The City in the City, though, really shows what China Mieville can do, and I really like that he is able to challenge himself. This doesn't really have the ornate, lush prose that you'll find in the Baz Log trilogy. This is more stripped back, laid bare, but he does still occasionally indulge in his love for $10 words, because, it's China Mieville, that's kind of his thing. But I like this book. I think it's a solid read. It's one of his better books, I will say. It's a really good one to start. I often recommend people start with The City in the City, or if you like fantasy, just jump in with Perdido Street Station. But The City in the City is a really good place to start. It's very short, it's very compact. There's not a lot of fat in there except for some explanation of how the world works and how people react to the world. But good book overall, and a strong book from Mieville. Though I still don't fully understand how the concept works. So if anyone wants to explain that to me, feel free. I'm still lost on that, because I don't think Mieville's on a whole other level than I'm at. So take that with what you will. I'll put this down now. Third book I read this month was one actually by a friend of mine, friend of the channel's, and that is Liam from Liam's Lyceum. Cool guy, you should check out his channel. I read his book Dreamer Awake, which is his new sci-fantasy, cyberpunk, sword and sorcery kind of story. It's a novella. It's not really, a long book. It's very much a throwback to the old sword and sorcery of people like Robert E. Howard and Fritz Leiber, but in a more science fiction-y, almost Gene Wolfian kind of setting. I haven't read Book of the New Sun, but I know of Book of the New Sun, and I know that Liam is a fan of Book of the New Sun. At least I think so. He thanked him in the acknowledgments, so I think it's a good bet to say that he is a fan of Gene Wolfe. But solid book, I will say. I didn't hate it. I was admittedly a bit discombobulated because I read it on my phone, and I generally don't like reading it on my phone, but that's neither here or there. There were some issues I had with it. A lot of it was I felt, kind of new writer mistakes, and I guess I shouldn't be presumptuous. I know that Liam has been writing for a little while. He's done some short stories, and also and this is his first novella, so I am hoping to have Liam on, maybe in November, December kind of area, and I can talk to him about this book, talk about, his thought process behind it, what he was going for, all of that. Should be fun. I'm looking forward to that conversation when we have it, because Liam's a cool guy. I enjoy him. He has a lot of really fascinating opinions about the science fiction and fantasy genres. I've had him on my channel a couple times. I've had him on my podcast. I've had him on my show, The State of Science Fiction. He was actually the last episode because I didn't do one in September because it was just ridiculously busy. So, yeah, but I'm looking forward to having Liam on. I could talk to him, maybe talk about some of my, not issues, but just kind of, quibbles that I had with it. There were some mistakes that I felt that Liam was making that I think he could have done better. There were some things I think he could have stretched out a little more. I think the characterization could have been a little better, but that's beside my point. It was a pretty interesting book, though. It's definitely a throwback to older types of science fiction and fantasy, and it does very well at that. So, yeah, Liam is a good writer too. He's good at, from sentence to sentence. He's a good line-by-line writer, as my friend Jason would say. But yeah, Dreamer Awake. Check it out. It just came out, like, a week ago. So, yeah. And I'm looking forward to having Liam on my channel to talk about Dreamer Awake because, Liam's a cool guy, and I enjoy talking to him. So, excuse me. Let's move on. Last book that I completed, and it was the one I was really itching to complete before the end of this month, and that is the final book of Philip Chase's Edan trilogy, The Return to Edan. What can I say about this book that I haven't said about the other two? Really good, traditional epic fantasy in the level of like a Tolkien or a oh god, I could say Eddings, but I haven't read Eddings, so I'm sorry, I can't really comment on that. But this is very much a traditional fantasy, but it also deals with a lot of themes of religion and the meaning of life and the sublime and how people misuse religion and also warfare. And I really like this book. It really goes in some interesting directions. Um, I think Philip is a really good writer, and he created a really good ending with this series. I did remember getting really emotional at some points. I do think that the Adan trilogy is probably the best self-published fantasy I have read thus far. And it's probably going to stay there for a while. I don't know if there's going to be a self-pub fantasy. Admittedly, I have not read a lot of it yet, so you can take that with a massive grain of salt. But from what little I've read so far, I have to say that I think the Adan trilogy is among the best of the of self-pub fantasy that I've read so far. Just very well written, very well constructed. I really love Philip's ruminations on faith and spirituality's purpose in our world, and people's search for meaning. And there's a lot of really moving stuff in here as well, really seeing the end of Dave Raven's story as Dave Raven and the Funky Bunch deal with the world after the war. And it was really interesting seeing a kind of, I don't know if I would call it a deconstruction, because I don't know if Philip is necessarily a deconstructive writer, but he's definitely playing with the happily ever after trope that is so often found in fantasy. And I really enjoy how he played with it in this. And there were also some new characters in this, and they were really a lot of fun too. I'm also hoping to have Philip on so we can talk about Return to Eden. Hopefully next month is what I'm hoping for, because again, October is spoopy month, so there's not really going to be a lot of time for me to sit around and talk with him about, or upload it anyway. I do want, maybe we can find a time this month to do it, but I'm just going to keep it I'm just going to push it to next month to, keep it, to just kind of keep things simple, because, I don't want to put Philip in a weird position. But this is a really good book, though. And the Adan trilogy, I mean, you can see it right there. It's a really good piece of fantasy, and it definitely joins the ranks of really good modern fantasy. So give it a shot. It's really good. And you can read my reviews on Goodreads. I've written 2 so far, and hopefully I will get around to reviewing this one on Goodreads when I can, and having the conversation with Dr. Philip Chase, because he is always fun to talk to, and I imagine there will be a lot to talk about. So yeah, I guess I should just put this down and get on with the rest of this video. I did watch a couple of movies. A lot of it was for my work, but also some of it was for pleasure as well. So let's get into it. I ended up watching Twisters, which is kind of a hilarious movie, considering where I'm from. I mean, when you try to make Jaws out of a natural disaster, it's going to be a little goofy. And I should say, as someone who's from Oklahoma, that is not how tornadoes work. I'm sure most people probably know this already, but in case there's like the couple of people who take movies at face value, know that is not how tornadoes work. And generally, they don't really happen, at least in where I'm at. Well, if you're in Moore, I would probably be a little worried. If you're in like that kind of, country area of Oklahoma, I would be a little worried. But aside from that, tornadoes are generally not as big of a deal, except sometimes. Sometimes they can be. I'm not saying that tornadoes are no big deal, but most of the time they don't really, they're not like in the movie. It's not like fucking Jaws where you have to be on your toes every 5 minutes. Hopefully it doesn't attack you. Solid movie though. I didn't really think it was that bad. It was pretty solid. It's a silly movie, but that's kind of a given. And I could be speaking with bias here. My cousin did work on Twisters, a little fun fact for the audience. But yeah, cast was pretty good. I like Glenn Powell a lot. I think he has a lot of charisma. Um, I liked some of the ideas they were playing with, like could you actually stop a tornado using technology? I thought that was pretty fun. I think you could actually make a cool movie just based on that. Um, it is a little contrived, I will admit, but I mean, it's a solid blockbuster film. I didn't really have a lot of issues with it aside from, predictability and cinema it is not, I shall say. But, it was fine. I didn't really have a problem with it. Next movie I saw was Slingshot. This was a sci-fi movie that has Casey Affleck in it. Frenchie from The Boys is in it, and also Lawrence Fishburne. Also a very, very good science fiction movie. I thought it was very strong. A lot of people will probably compare it to Moon. I haven't seen Moon, but I know a lot of people really like that movie, and they'll probably compare this movie to Moon. I really like I really like Casey Affleck. I think he's a good actor. He has this vacancy to a lot of his performances where he has this kind of laid back vacancy to his performances. Kind of like Jesse Plemons, aka the guy who plays Todd on Breaking Bad. He has this very blank face where you can kind of, he can lose his shit without like going overboard like a Jack Nicholson or someone like that. And it's a really well put together movie. It really messes with your mind in a lot of ways, which is, what you want from a psychological thriller. It's also really sad in a lot of places. There's a lot of themes of unrequited love and never saying what you mean to say because, that's the folly of the human condition. We never really say what we mean. And this film kind of deals with regret a lot. And overall, solid movie. Another film I saw was Speak No Evil. This was with James McAvoy and Mackenzie Davis, and Scoot McNairy's in it, and there's a couple of other people. Again, solid movie. I know it's a remake of like a Danish movie, and of course, Jason predictably was like, "Oh, this movie fucking sucks. It's not like the other movie." I haven't seen the original movie, so I won't comment. But I thought this film was solid. James McAvoy can really play unhinged characters. If you didn't gather that from his performance in Split, which might be one of his best, here he's actually quite good. And there's actually a lot of really interesting stuff. There's a lot of unanswered questions and a lot of things about trauma and, not really speaking up when you probably should. Though I imagine the original movie is probably a better examination of this. So, maybe I'll get around to seeing the original movie. I'm so bad at watching movies nowadays. I mean, I watch movies for my job, but a lot of the time, like, I haven't really sat down to watch a movie for the fun of it for a while because, for one, I'm quite busy, and two, there's other things I'm doing with my time, like reading and playing video games and watching other things, and creating YouTube content. But I mean, I love movies though, so I mean, there you go. And then there's Megalopolis. I walked out of it. I'll be honest. Do I really need to say more? I walked out of it. I've never walked out of a movie in 23 years that I've gone to the movies and loved movies. There are some I've enjoyed. There's a lot I've not really enjoyed. Like, Deadpool and Wolverine was a pretty stupid movie, but I didn't walk out of that film. It didn't offend me. Megalopolis is the most self-indulgent, arty, just every art house idea that Francis Ford Coppola could throw at the fucking screen for 2.5 hours, and about like 2 hours in, I couldn't take it anymore. And also, I felt bad for dragging my dad along with me to go see it. I bailed. I couldn't do it anymore. It was just a stupid, vapid, joyless movie. And I hate to say it, because I'm a big fan of Francis Ford Coppola. His run in the 70s is one of the most iconic runs in movie history. But he is not cutting it here. And I mean, he also made some good movies afterwards, like Dracula. Dracula is really good. The Outsiders. I have a soft spot for The Outsiders because, it takes place in my home state. But it's also a good movie. It's a good book and it's a good movie, too. I mean, Francis Ford Coppola, he still had some gas in the tank. He could make good movies. But, he's old. He's got a wine company. he should have just stayed retired, to be honest with you. And I mean, it's nice to see him get his passion project off the ground, because there's other movies like Atopiary and, Stanley Kubrick's Napoleon, which we'll probably never see. And he actually got to make it. He actually got to get it together and make the movie. But or Jodorowsky's Dune, which hell, that probably wasn't going to be made anyway, and it probably wouldn't have been as good as everyone thought it was. That's kind of my hot take of the situation. But yeah, Megalopolis. I walked out of it. Need I say more? Oh, I also watched a show called The Penguin, which I'm still watching right now. It's a spinoff of The Batman that came out a few years ago, which I really enjoy. It's a great film. A bit too long, but a great film. Great show. Really good so far. Really compelling characters. Really expands the Penguin's role. And I think Colin Farrell might be to the Penguin what Heath Ledger was to the Joker. Or who, I hate to say this because I like Danny DeVito as the Penguin as well. It's a bit of a soft spot for me. But Colin Farrell might be the best actor who has done the Penguin, who isn't Nolan North or Danny DeVito. I really, really like this show so far. It's only been 2 episodes, but it's really good. I really like Colin Farrell. And Kristen Maloney, I think is her name. Please forgive me if I get her name wrong. You can correct me in the comments. She is phenomenal as Sophia Falcone. She, kind of like what I was saying earlier about Casey Affleck and Jesse Plemons, there's this vacancy in her performance, but she also, radiates intensity. There's this rage and this just hate that exists inside of her that's really, beckoning to get out. And it's really, you're always on your toes when she's on screen. And I really like her a lot in the role. I think she's really talented actress. I mean, she was on Black Mirror. You might know her from Black Mirror, or if you watched How I Met Your Mother. I never watched that, but I know a lot of people like it. But she's phenomenal in this. I mean, my God, she is terrifying as Sophia Falcone. And luckily, this isn't a Sopranos knockoff. I was kind of nervous that this would be like a bad Sopranos riff like the Tulsa King was. But luckily, no. It's actually a pretty compelling crime drama for the most part. And Colin Farrell, he's phenomenal as the Penguin. He's absolutely phenomenal. What can I say? He's really, again, he might be one of the best people who will ever play the Penguin, who isn't Nolan North or Danny DeVito. Again, I have a soft spot for Danny DeVito as the Penguin. But, yeah, I think that's it. That's about as much as I have to say. I really don't want this to go on for too long. But, yeah, it's all really I got to say. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. You can find me on Twitter. You can also find me on Instagram and Blue Sky, even though I barely use Blue Sky. I'm also on Goodreads and Letterboxd, where I write reviews that are probably more coherent than the one you just heard right now. Also, subscribe. As my buddy John Minton likes to say, it feels good when you do it. Also, share the video around with your friends and family. And also, as my friend John Minton said, and was able to actually prove, because the meme will never die, apparently you do legitimately get a tingle when you subscribe. So, yeah, go for the tingle, baby. It's real. The meme is real. It's been peer-reviewed by Dr. Philip Chase. It's a thing. So, there you go. Anyway, hope you guys enjoyed this video. Until next time. Bye.